Thanks everybody for coming out today. It's really nice to see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new ones. For the people who are tuning in from home, hello, thanks for tuning in. Before I begin, I want to do a rough gauge in terms of how familiar we are with Polkadot, how high level or technical I should tailor this presentation. Raise of hands, how familiar are you guys with Polkadot? Are you like, okay, high level of familiarity, cool. How many of you guys are building on Polkadot? Nice, okay, cool. So I'll save you a lot of what you already know and kind of get into the fun high-level updates from the Astar camp, which there have been a lot of in the past couple months. So at a very high level, Kenny did a really good job of explaining why Polkadot, right? And I think it's a really good kind of starting point for this presentation. We're at this event hosted by Webzero, who've done a phenomenal job, funded by the Polkadot Treasury. And when we look to where we wanted to build Astar, right, what is the objective that we really wanted to get at? Having a network that had a very high degree of sovereignty that could last for an extended period of time and is able to adapt as trends or technology changes is actually very important. Before joining Astar and leading growth here, I actually did something very similar at Parity. And so I've been around the ecosystem for a while and observed how narratives have changed, how dApps have sort of changed, and how parachains have kind of adjusted their priorities over time, right? One of the really beautiful things about Polkadot is it's one of the very few networks that have thought very closely about its governance and has the ability to adapt over time. I think within the last year, Polkadot has had over 50 runtime upgrades through governance. They're able to fund all sorts of other mechanisms and events and educational content through the on-chain governance. And it really creates a good system for the network to evolve over time and really be future-proof, right? And where this really helps the parachains and the dApps on top of there as well is that we're able to utilize this feature in a very collaborative way, where parachains are highly incentivized to work with each other to achieve their goals versus being in a silo, right? And XCM, which is Polkadot's cross-chain message passing mechanism, that's a mouthful, also enables this sort of compounding network effect that you get to experience in the ecosystem, right? Astar is not an expert on privacy, nor do we have to be, because there are experts on privacy and there are experts on storage and a variety of different functions that you get to pull from to really create much more sophisticated applications. The question being then, what is our key focus? And when we looked at sort of crypto as a whole, right, there is kind of a user problem across the board. A consumer-facing, or a lack of consumer-facing focus, which we think is really important. When you kind of observe where crypto has found clear product market fit within the last year, the key piece that comes up time and time again is this idea of community, right? Interest-based groups all collecting over certain things, whether it's NFTs or DeFis, et cetera. And we really wanted to create an innovation hub that enables these sort of network states to work at scale, right? If Polkadot is bootstrapping your security, giving bank-like security for networks so they can sort of operate with a high degree of sovereignty, then Astar is bootstrapping your community, which is a key aspect of actually growing the ecosystem as a whole. So how do we do that? And I have a lot of slides here, but I'm going to fly through them and really hit the key points, right? The first key point is that, how do people deploy contracts today? And a lot of it has been sort of Solidity-based, EVM, it's a lot of copy and paste. This worked in Ethereum, so it might work in Polkadot. Right? We really want to enable people to develop applications and reduce the developmental costs and efforts that actually go into making this happen. And the key area which we have identified to actually make this work is actually building in a WASM VM within Astar. So not only do we support EVM applications, which everybody's familiar with, we actually are pushing to support WASM applications throughout the board, which even more people are familiar with, right? Why should you have to learn an entirely new programming language to develop an application when your key focus is creating a great community or a user application or a game or an NFT? Let's build up the stack and actually compound instead of having to reinvent the wheel every time we want to build something new. And so, one of the things we've really pushed to avoid these silos of EVM contracts that are easy to create but hard to change is pushing this WASM VM, right? And so once you kind of realize, okay, there's cool ways to deploy your applications, now we look at what are the incentives to actually do so. And one of the things that really came forefront is that it's very expensive to develop a blockchain application. How do we support developers and get away from what has traditionally been, let's say, grant arbitrage, right? Sort of paying people to build, as opposed to creating a good incentive mechanism where people are incentivized to build a community around what they're doing. And so we've basically come and tackled a lot of these problems to create what we like to think as the innovation hub of Polkadot. What does that look like? Okay, cool. Number one, we want to be able to connect with all the functionality and users and liquidity that exists in this connected ecosystem that is Polkadot, right? And XCM is a great way to do that. We try to enable a lot of our applications to plug into these XCM channels that we've opened with other parachains. So right off the bat, we get rid of these silos that exist, right? Number two, we need to support the developers, right? But we need to support them in a way that inherently reflects success within crypto, which is based on the communities that you are building around your application. And to do so, we've created a dApp staking mechanism where a percentage of all transaction fees goes to the top dApps on Astar. What this means is that you don't necessarily need to launch a token to create a good product and to reach the right people, which is really powerful if you're still getting paid to do so, right? And so that's another big part of it. WebAssembly smart contract support, this is a big bet we're making, and it's almost a no-brainer. We see it already exist today. EVM is a great introduction, but it's also a barrier. And how do we reduce the cost to build? Well, it's WASM, right? A lot of the tooling exists out there. A lot of the thinking and education exists out there. How do we sort of bridge the gap and enable you to actually deploy within a blockchain context? And that's kind of the key element there. And then interoperability between smart contracts. We've created a lot of tooling to make this happen. So you can think about Astar as kind of reducing the cost to build, creating some incentives for you to actually succeed in your product and build a community around it, and plugging you into the native sort of interoperability and compounding network effects of Polkadot. And this gets really exciting, right? So let me kind of jump ahead a little bit here. Cool. What we've realized is that the key customer, right? We all want to reach users at the end of the day. However, you need to enable people to build really good applications and make sure that they're actually consumer facing, right? Like it's really cool to do a, liquid, solid, liquid gas staking protocol that enables, another layer of so-and-so. But the question you really should start asking is, are these applications for, right? How do we enable these communities to actually succeed and have a good experience? And what we realized is that we actually had to get very involved and coordinated in terms of helping these projects launch. So we recently did a launch with Candy Girl, who is the creator of Final Fantasy, and we worked very closely with them to actually build a community, right? Every piece of content that we ever publish in Astar, technical, educational, and so on, it's translated to Japanese, to Spanish, to Portuguese, all over the world to increase the amount of access people actually have to content, right? Our key focus is looking at dApp developers across the board and saying, we are going to support you. And what that looks like is not just funneling on a lot of money in terms of, in the name of liquidity, it's actually allowing you to connect closely with the community that enables you to have a sustainable application over time, right? And so we come at it from a very bottoms-up approach, which is very inherently crypto, right? It is extremely bottoms-up, and you can see community in real life take place, and this is what really sustains us. At the same time, however, we realized that we need to reach a wider group of people through the existing channels that are already very identifiable. And this is where the top-down approach comes. Astar has been very active in Japan over the last year or two, really trying to get great brand recognition there and more importantly, work with a lot of big enterprises. Recently, we announced a hackathon with Toyota, one of the largest companies in the world, right? And it's not about sort of doing enterprisey hand-waving in terms of pumping token value, but instead, we've had 400 signups for this hackathon, every single applicant which will be building on Astar, right? How do we onboard enterprises in a way that they feel comfortable getting into the space, but at the same time focusing on the core value proposition of crypto, which is its bottoms up. It's community driven, and it requires people to actually build applications that other people want to use, and you can sort of use enterprise as a vehicle to get there, right? So, Toyota was a big announcement, and it's really great to kind of see the new waves of builders coming in from there. The other really big one was an incubator we launched with Sony, right? Using the similar model. We're helping them get into the space by incubating a lot of the really interesting innovations and dApps that are coming up, and at the same time, focusing those dApps to launch on Astar in a very focused manner. so this is kind of the key updates here. What I want to leave you off on is if you are a dApp developer looking to actually create a product that reaches people, that has a community built around it, that has users that are invested in what you are doing, right? We are here to help. We want to look at reducing what it takes for you to build that application, but at the same time, making sure you get paid and making sure you reach the right people. And so, Polkadot is a wonderful place to do that. We're going to stick around for a very long time, and we're going to keep innovating and creating tools to make it easier. But fundamentally, our goals are the same. Let's grow the community together. Let's make sure we reach the right people, and let's have fun along the way. So, thanks a lot. Looking forward to chatting with some of you guys afterwards. And if you have any questions, happy to take them. Cheers.